Brady and Banner United Methodist Church. I am Arun Peters and I get to be the pastor here. I am just so glad that you're all able to join us in worship this morning from the safeties and comforts of your home. What a great privilege that we can all be here together, worshiping the same God and Savior from wherever we are. It is such a blessing to do that.
Our gospel reading this morning comes from Luke chapter 1, verses 5 through 19. As some were talking about the temple, that it was decorated with beautiful stones and consecrated offerings of magnificent gifts of gold, which were displayed on the walls and hung in the porticos, he said, "As for all these things which you see, the time will come when there will not be one stone left on another that will not be torn down." They asked him, "Teacher, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign when these things are about to happen?" He said, "Be careful and see to it that you are not misled. For many will come in my name, appropriating for themselves the name Messiah, which belongs to me alone, saying, 'I am he, and the time is near.' Do not follow them. When you hear of wars and disturbances, do not panic, for these things must take place first, but the end will not come immediately." Then Jesus told them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be violent earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences, plagues or epidemics. And there will be terrible sights and great signs from heaven. But before all these things, they will lay their hands on you and will persecute you, turning you over to the synagogues and prisons and bringing you before kings and governors for my name's sake. This will be a time and an opportunity for you to testify. So make up your minds not to prepare beforehand to defend yourselves. For I will give you words and wisdom which none of your opponents will be able to resist or refute. But you will be betrayed and handed over, even by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. And you will be continually hated by everyone because of my name. But not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your souls." Here ends the reading.
While I lived in Richmond, Virginia, I would frequently take an hour and 50-minute day trip to Washington, D.C., and it may have been to just go visit one of the several museums on the Smithsonian, or walk the Potomac, or tour the National Mall, and if nothing, just to stop all the craziness, all the chaos of seminary life, and appreciate creation and the beauty of the spectacular cherry blossoms that line the Potomac, outlining the stunning architectural wonders of the Jefferson Memorial and the Lincoln Memorial. Now, on the way to Washington, D.C. lies the Marine Corps Base at Quantico. 70 years ago, the bloody 25-day battle of Iwo Jima, which cost the lives of 4,000 Marines, was winding down, and the time to remember the dead began. Division Chaplain Warren Cuthrell asked Rabbi Gitelson to deliver the memorial sermon at a combined religious service dedicating the Marine Cemetery. Cuthrell wanted all the Iwo Jima fallen Marines to be honored in a single non-denominational ceremony. Now, Gitelson's remarks, which eventually were read into the congressional record, his eulogy at the dedication of the 5th Marine Division Cemetery at Iwo Jima on March of 1945, embodies the ethos of the Navy Chaplain Corps, which is to provide, facilitate, advise, and care for all. And this is what he said at the funeral service, and this was what his eulogy was. "Here before us lie the bodies of comrades and friends. Men who until yesterday or last week laughed with us, joked with us, trained with us. Men who were on the same ships with us, and went over the sides with us as we prepared to hit the beaches of this island. Men who fought with us and feared with us. Under one of these Christian crosses or beneath a Jewish Star of David, there may now rest a man who was destined to be a great prophet, to find the way perhaps for all to live in plenty with poverty and hardship for none. Now they lie here silently in the sacred soil, and we gather to consecrate this earth in their memory. Here lie officers and men, black and white, rich and poor, together. Here no man prefers another because of his faith or despises him because of his color. Here there are no quotas of how many from each group are admitted or allowed. Among these men there is no discrimination, no prejudice, no hatred. Theirs is the highest and purest democracy. Any man among us, the living, who fails to understand that will thereby betray those who lie here dead. Whoever of us lifts up his hand against a brother or thinks himself superior to those who happen to be in the minority makes of this ceremony and of the bloody sacrifice it commemorates an empty, hollow mockery. To this then, as our solemn sacred duty, do we, the living, now dedicate ourselves to the rights of the Protestants, Catholics, and Jews, of white and black alike, to enjoy the democracy for which all of them have paid the price. Such beautiful, touching, inspirational words. Friends, today is Memorial Day. Actually, it is tomorrow. Memorial Day is supposed to be a day when we remember what the brave men and women have done to protect our nation in times of war and in times of difficult circumstances. Every conflict we've ever been involved in has had its share of casualties, often due to the unusual bravery they display in the midst of combat. Every once in a while, during those conflicts, something happens. A soldier does something which is so out of the ordinary that Congress acknowledges that person's effort by awarding them the Medal of Honor. This award is presented to someone who distinguishes himself by gallantry at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. The deed performed must have been one of self-sacrifice, so conspicuous as to clearly distinguish the individuals above his comrades, and must have involved risk of life. More often than not, these individuals sacrifice themselves for the greater good of others. In a small Middle Eastern country nearly 2,000 years ago, that's exactly what happened. A closer look at this hero reveals some strong similarities to the heroes that I just described, but also some significant differences. His name was Jesus, son of Joseph the carpenter. Raised in Nazareth, the scriptures give us little or nothing to go on about his early life, other than the familiar Christmas story, the visit of the Magi, and the time when he stayed behind at the temple and his parents came to find him. After that, there is a significant jump ahead in time to his adult life and his ministry among both his people, the Jews, and many Gentiles as well. Who would have expected such heroic actions from this man? The prophet Isaiah tells us that there was nothing about him physically that would have possibly hinted any sort of heroism. Jesus put himself in harm's way. He endured pain and suffering for the benefits of others. In Isaiah 53, this was foretold far in advance. When we read, "Surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows, yet we consider him stricken by God, smitten by him, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed." And he did it willingly. As Isaiah continues to go on, he says he was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughterhouse, and as a sheep before her shearer is silent, so did he not open his mouth. Matthew records in his gospel not once but twice that Jesus responded to the pain and suffering he was about to endure with the words, "Not my will, but yours be done." Jesus willingly endured this pain and suffering on behalf of his people to the point of death. Paul wrote in his letter to the Philippians saying, "And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross." And in Romans chapter 5, that very rarely will anyone die for a righteous man, though for a good man someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. In that victory, the sacrifice was made by Jesus Christ, was an inspiration to those who witnessed it or heard about it. And the clearest, most dynamic example of how Christ's life, death, and resurrection inspired his people is the fact that we are coming together in worship this morning from wherever we are, from the comforts and safeties of our homes. In today's reading, Jesus explains that nations will rise against nations and kingdoms against kingdoms. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilence in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven. These events are happening today, friends. They're happening right in front of us, and will more likely continue to happen in the future. But the psalmist goes on to say that I sought the Lord and he answered me. He delivered me from all of my fears. Friends, we need to be honest with ourselves and admit that in a world of terrorist attacks, biological warfares, diseases, and pestilence, where individuals such as our armed forces, our frontline responders and workers, and our nurses and doctors do not hesitate to give their lives for their particular cause or belief, irrespective of any race or color or religion, we will never be totally protected and invulnerable. Instead of being rebellious to the fact and thinking that we are immune to all that is going on around us, we need to accept it, put on the full armor of God, and combine it with a life of steady and regular prayer and trust in God fully. And then we can face anything and everything that stands against us. As we go forth this morning, I want to encourage you to remember those who have served and made the sacrifice for the freedoms that we enjoy so freely today. America is a great nation, a free country. And that is what we are going to enjoy because of what these men and women have done for us. And at the same time, I want us not to forget to give thanks to God, the Jesus, the Christ, and his willingness to serve, his commitment to our spiritual freedom and our eternal salvation. Let us be confident in our daily faith battles, knowing that we are equipped by God to be that faithful warrior that makes a difference in the world around us. Friends, the need for a military force will more likely never disappear. We will need a protectorate from the forces around the globe to guarantee the rights and privileges we can express today. It is through our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen, and marines that we have the luxury of unprecedented freedoms on this earth. But only Christ can grant freedom from sin that his sacrifice has granted us. Only in him lies the final victory. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
I heard an old story, how a Savior came from glory, how he gave his life